I'm Peter from the Daily Rios.
I'm Eric from Longbox Review, and this is episode 36 of Peter and Eric's Legion Project podcast. Hello and welcome to the Legion Project podcast. I am your host, Eric.
And I'm your host, Peter.
And Peter and I are here today to discuss issue 36 of the third volume of the Legion of Superheroes. Although, if you listen to our last episode, Peter is not so comfortable with the volume numbers. However, we'll move on with that. Which I wanted to make note also. Issue 36 marks the end of the third year. I assume, 12 issues per year. We're at issue 36 of the series. And for those who may be following along at the time of this recording, that means we're closing in on the Legion Project podcast's 5th anniversary.
Right.
So, Peter, at this rate, I estimate it will take, if I did my math correctly, and it's been a long time since I've had to solve for X, I estimate it'll take us another 3 years or so to reach the end of this series.
Oh, that's not bad. Wait, are you just counting Legion Project episodes? Are you counting Tales episodes too?
Just the time it's taken us to get to issue 30. But it includes all that stuff. But it's taken us. We're almost at 5 years.
Oh, I see.
We're only at the end of the third year of the Baxter run. So right. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. We're slow, not slow.
We're not. It's not a race. We're not trying. Unlike the race that's in this issue, which I'm jumping ahead, but I swear to God, Peter, Colossal Boy cheated in that little race there. I'll point that out later. But it's not a sprint here. We're doing some really interesting things. The Tales of the Legion Project episodes, of which we have, I think, some really interesting a couple episodes coming up soon-ish, right? Yeah,
I guess we should talk about our plans. Let's talk about our plans. So we are heading to the 5th anniversary, and a lot of this, like previous anniversaries, our anniversary is in September, when we dropped the first Legion Project episode. A lot of our anniversaries just happen to fall on random things that are like, oh, that's kind of cool. Our anniversary is ending and we're in this particular issue or whatever. But in this case, there's still a sense of like, oh, this is kind of two things colliding. So our 5th anniversary is coming up. We are also coming up on our 50th episode, if you include the numbered Legion Project episodes and the Tales episodes. So we just dropped Tales episode number 10. This is Legion Project 36, so that's 46 episodes, meaning we only have 4 more to hit the grand number 50. Like, that's a milestone in
anniversary podcast.
Sure. Anniversary podcast on our 5th anniversary.
That's right. That's our plan. That's right.
So if anybody wants to do a little, to continue the whole algebra thing, we're talking legacy numbering, right? Marvel loves to do legacy numbering. And I guess that's what we're doing. Not that we're going to change our format afterwards, but, you count all the Tales, you count all the Legion Project episodes, we're going to get up to episode 50 episodes. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the 50th episode, it is going to fall on Legion of Superheroes issue number 38, which, if you know what that is, the end of the Superboy story, that is a fairly monumental issue
Mm-hmm.
in regards to this entire run. So the way we're going to get there is after this episode, we're going to do 2 more Tales episodes. And then we're going to jump to the Superboy story, issue number 37, issue number 38. Issue number 38 will be episode 50. We're not going to renumber. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to celebrate it for what it is.
Right.
You know, that'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. And we'll talk about, at the end of this episode, we'll talk about what we're going to do in the next Tales episode, which will also be a lot of fun to kind of start the, you could say we're sort of starting the whole anniversary celebration already.
Mm-hmm. Yes. A little preamble to that is what this is.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of math to get us to that 50th. It's a little forced, but that's okay. I don't care.
I remember when you first brought this up to me, like, I don't know how many months ago. It's okay if we do this and then we follow up with a couple of these and do this and we'll get to episode 50. It was really cool.
Yeah. I can't help produce, right? I'm just constantly just thinking. So, part of me was even thinking about this issue, this issue number 36. I hadn't read it. This is probably the second time I've ever read it. And honestly, as I was reading, I was like, I don't remember a damn thing in this issue. But then as I was reading it, I was like, oh, we probably should have done this right after the Universo Project. Because, the people in the letter columns were calling this like a breather issue. And I was like, no, this is kind of like an epilogue in terms of what we've been discussing as well.
Right.
And very much like that one issue with Censor Girl, that after that all wrapped up, there was that one issue right after that was like an epilogue. But then that would have meant we would have done like 4 Tales episodes in a row. And I was like, nah, we can't do that. So that it's better that we are back to the Baxter issue right now, especially after those 2 dreadful Bendis issues. That's right, I said it.
I was wondering if you're going to mention that, because do you mind if I tell him what you said in the message to me? Sure. So Peter contacted me about recording this very episode for issue 36, and in that message he was like, I have to get the bad taste of that the Bendis Sook Legion out of my mouth or out of your brain or something like that. Yeah, it's true. And it did. It worked. It did work. Yeah. So that's good. So we constantly thinking, constantly just thinking. And don't kid yourselves if you don't think I already have a plan for episode 100. Because I have no idea what he's talking about either.
Nope,
so
I know. It's all I have my noggin just doesn't stop. So I should be double header. I should have the 2 brains, the 2 heads.
There you go.
Bounce ideas off each other. So anyway, okay. So stick to the end. We'll talk about what we're doing with the next Tales episode. But we are back talking about the Baxter run, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick,
it feels like home. Sorry, God, it's nice. It was nice to visit.
Yes,
this other future, but this is the future that I much rather be immersed in.
I totally agree. Did you pick up the 5 years later omnibus?
I did not.
The first one? Oh, because the second one just was released.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah. I regret it.
Oh, really?
Because I thought I would just pick it up later. Because sometimes, I order so many books every month, and I go through my order, and it's like adding an omnibus onto the everything else that I want to get for issues that I already have. And I adore the 5 year later run, but it was just too much at that time. And I thought, I'll just pick it up later. And now I'm finding it's very difficult to find that 5 year later first omnibus, at least from the places that I order from or that I can purchase from directly. So yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself. Did you get it?
No, God, no. I'm not a fan of omnibus.
Yeah.
I don't care for it. I have maybe 1 or 2, but that's it. And the cost is, how much was it? Was it 150? Usually they're 150. Maybe it was
Oh my,
100. I don't
are
know.
they really that much now?
I
Holy
think
mackerel.
so. Yeah. Like you're dropping almost 300 issues onto $300 on, depending on either 200 to 300. Like I said, I don't remember what the cost of it. I mean, I'm seeing here Things from Another World has the second one for 120.
Ooh,
So maybe it was 100. You know, somebody has it on the first volume on eBay for 500. That's
that is ridiculous. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's about the price of George Perez JLA Avengers thing that I've seen around. You know, that's kind of, I would say that's kind of an average that I've seen.
Right.
So for an omnibus of material that I don't know, maybe I know a lot of us Legion fans have been clamoring for that run to be collected. So I guess so.
Yeah, but I've seen other places. There's another eBay one for $90. So yeah, I don't know how much it is, but it's too much for whatever. I just was curious. I'm also not happy. Okay, this is me being really picky. I hate the cover choices that they picked.
Yeah.
Because neither of them reflect the 5 years later Legion. It's the clone batch on the first cover.
Yep.
And it's the clone batch again, the Legionnaires, on the second cover.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Why do you think DC thinks that Keith Giffen can't sell the Legion on these omnibuses? Yeah, covers?
I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, there were plenty of good Keith Giffen group shots or just stick the giant L from issue number 12, I think it was, where it literally was just the L with a little bit of silhouettes of the characters, like a shadow on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can maybe see you don't want to do the first issue cover of Cosmic Boy in the ring. It's a little too vague, you know. Okay, I get that.
Sure.
But there was a pull-out poster you could have used part of the image from, with they're all in their Legion tracksuits or whatever those things were, the gray suits that they all wore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was just really okay. I get it. The second one you can do that because that does involve more about the clones, but the first one to use the no, I was just like, no, I'm sorry, no, not for me. You failed. But anyway, I think that's all of the preamble we need to discuss.
So you ready for some peace, quiet, and impending doom, Peter?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is issue 36 by Paul Levitz. Greg LaRocque and Mike DiCarlo as artists, John Costanza, letterer, Carl Gafford, colorist, the usual suspects. Orange Star, inking assist, Karen Berger, editor, with a cover by John Byrne and Carl. Peter, is it Kiesel or Kessel? Kiesel, that's what I thought. Okay. All righty. In the aftermath of the Universo Project, a new Legion leader is elected. That's the real brief synopsis, but here goes my more detailed one. So the issue begins with Element Lad announcing his resignation as Legion leader, and Polar Boy wastes no time to announce his candidacy. Dream Girl declares her support for Sensor Girl, despite Sensor Girl saying she doesn't see herself seeking a leadership role. Annoyed with this, Brainiac 5 concludes that he and Saturn Girl must appoint themselves Element Lad's campaign managers. We'll see how that goes. Later, Saturn Girl, Tellus, and Sensor Girl help the science police by transferring a sleeping Universo to the prison planet Labyrinth. And Saturn Girl discovers Universo had planned to use her and the other captive heroes to attack Oa. Polar Boy begins his, pardon this, Peter, cool campaign strategy, but not everyone is happy about it. Brainiac 5 oversees Mon-El and Ultra Boy dismantling an aerator Universo built to pump hypnotic chemicals into the atmosphere. Wildfire visits Quislet to find out how the alien can help him control his energy form outside of his containment suit, and Quislet obliges. Timberwolf goes on a date with Hollow News personality Morella Tau. What the heck? The Legionnaires react to the news that Polar Boy has won the election. following a visit to Ron Vidar's mausoleum with Circadia Senius, Brainiac 5 tells the Time Institute director that perhaps it is time he returned home to Kalu. The Legionnaires gather to swear in their new leader, and Polar Boy asks Element Lad to serve as deputy leader. Element Lad then takes Polar Boy to talk to Cosmic Boy and Night Girl, who have recently returned from their trip to the 20th century, saying that they have hard choices ahead, scary ones. Finally, the issue ends with the Time Institute imploding, and the Time Trapper tells us that Cosmic Boy will lead the Legionnaires to come after him to save history, his future, his reality, but he doesn't dream that time itself is stacked against him. Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for a breather issue, this was pretty packed with a lot of things going on.
As they always are.
That's true.
I think it's going to go down. If we ever do a wrap up of all 63 issues, some of our favorite issues are going to wind up being, we're going to say, our favorite issues were probably these kind of issues.
Mm-hmm.
These, what do they call them in TV? Bubble issues, where bubble episodes, where they are usually only on one set.
Yeah, to save money. Yeah,
yeah, and not that that's the case, but when we get these issues where the team, they're all discussing one topic, or they're all grouped together because it is their breather after the big Universo project or after the war with the Legion of Supervillains. It just is a fascinating insight to who they are and what they think about whatever the topic is. And it reminds us, or Levitz gets to remind us of what he thinks of these characters and what he wants to put in their mouths based on whatever the topic is. You know what I mean? So
mm-hmm.
yeah, I think we always come across as favorable with these issues. So I certainly feel that way. So I'm a fan of this issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Generally speaking, I will say though, upon my first read, because this is also, you said you had read this once before.
I think, yeah,
and obviously this is my first time reading through it. I was actually a little, I guess, dissatisfied with the issue. More so, not so much with the material that's in it, but in the way that it's, I guess, presented. I don't know. It felt if I had to choose one word to describe my feeling about this issue, is it came across as a little too disjointed. Part of that is maybe my reaction to the epilogue, the denouement of the Universo Project story itself, in the way that it's presented in relation to the 4 issues. Some of it is like the whole Timberwolf thing that I pointed out. Suddenly he's with this other person. Correct me if I'm wrong. We never saw any of that. Right. In the previous 4 issues.
It's our first appearance.
Yeah. So it's like this thing out of nowhere, which, is not a real problem. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like Levitz is just, I guess maybe I'm reacting because normally we see things just kind of pop up and they come in and out, over a course of so many issues. And this thing is just here. He's just kind of plopped it in front of us, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's, nice that the guy's moving on, or apparently. So, and who knows what's going to happen with this new character that he's dating. So, I don't know, it didn't sit as well with me, but there's some really great things about the characters and their interactions with each other. I can't wait to talk about the whole election stuff with you. So, all that is really good fodder for discussion for sure.
Right. I feel like you're far more consistent with that kind of criticism of the book, or that kind of examination of the story. Whereas, I sort of think back of what I just said, and had this been one of the Bendis issues, I would have been like, well, who's this person and why is she there? Like, that don't make sense. Whereas in this issue, because we've been talking about the Legion for 36 issues, I'm like, it's not very different. It happens in this book, Quizlet bumps into Dream Girl and she's hugging some other dude. Like it just happens out of nowhere, right? You're like,
Oh, that's
what?
true. Yeah.
You know, Shrinking Violet is putting her hand down Sunboy's shirt, and you're just like, what? What's that about? You know?
That's right.
So I feel like there's precedence for that kind of storytelling, but I totally understand what you're saying, and I accept it because I, number one, love this volume so much. You know, again, if it was another one that I was sort of half in the back, I would have been like, nah, forget it. But I agree, though, the disjointedness happens in this issue because it's like they're all brought together in the first scene, and then the election is going on, and then they're like, all right, well, we got stuff to do. You know, like it's such a huge team that Levitz is like, some of these characters can't go A to B to C to D.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a handful that get to do that. Brainy gets to do that. We've talked about this before, like who are these core characters that get, Brainy's getting to do that the most. Sensor Girl, Dream Girl, you know, Saturn Girl a little bit now. You know, like there's Element Lad. There's certain characters that get to do that. Other characters, Levitz is like, meh, I'm going to go A to J because you don't need to know. Timberwolf had his thing. He's rich, right? I don't know. Is he still rich? I don't know. He's hooking up with some newscaster during the whole Universo project. We didn't see any of the Legionnaires in the universe, right? Like they,
other than Element Lad, yeah.
If they weren't imprisoned, where were they, right? So it's
right.
like, okay, they had other stuff happening. In an odd way, it kind of makes you wonder, well, what were the other ones doing during that time too?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I totally get that. I totally feel that if I look back, I go, yep, super disjointed. People are just working out in the gym again and just living their lives. You know, they just had this whole universe. It's like only Element Lad is the only one that's like, am I the only one that feels like we let down the whole universe?
Right.
Like, you know. But so I do, yeah, I totally see that. So
I've now that you're talking about that, I was just thinking, if this were done today, this story, the Universal Project was done today, we'd have at least 6 issues. Right, for the trade collection, where we have what we had before, but then we have a couple issues, not just this one, to give us that the epilogue, but also to explore maybe a little bit more,
right,
what everybody else was doing, or maybe they would have broken up the 6 issues with a little bit of Universal stuff with the 4 major characters, and then more of the Legion scattered throughout the 6 issues. So yeah. So I just an interesting divergent point, I guess.
yeah. John Byrne on the cover.
What? Yeah. Is that just because of what's coming up? Because this cover, if you don't mind, Peter.
Oh no.
This cover, I have problems with this cover. I mean, really? There's nothing wrong with the art, or the artistry of it. So we have Polar Boy, Sensor Girl, Element Lad, Timberwolf, all have things to do in this issue. Dawnstar, I guess to fill that left corner area, she has one panel where she's not like in like a background shot or a group scene, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's it. So it's just like, what? This is just them flying by a big Legion L. The votes are in, special election issue, and then so. My other complaint about this is, way to spoil the election results on the cover. I mean, all you have to do is look at Polar Boy featured centered and prominent in the front, and you know what the result is, right? Am I just like Monday morning quarterbacking this thing?
I think you're right. I mean, like it makes me feel this cover was probably commissioned without Byrne knowing anything about what the story was, right? And they probably needed to do it in far enough advance. Maybe Steve Lytle was, putting so much work in those Universo Project covers that they couldn't use him. I don't know. Part of me feels like this should be, if next issue wasn't the whole start of the Superboy thing, this should be like next issue's cover. after you've announced that Polar Boy
Yeah.
wins. Uh, I don't know, but I'm sure maybe some people looked at it and they probably had no idea. Maybe they just thought it was a cool cover and that was the John Byrne, and they do it. I think the whole thing with Dawnstar, people just love Dawnstar.
Yeah.
They love Dawnstar. Artists love Dawn. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I've pointed this out too, how Greg LaRocque is constantly spotlighting her.
He loves her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's just like, well, if you're gonna, well, I guess maybe this runs counter to your idea of this being asked for in advance, right? Because it does, or maybe he drew in other characters and then had to redraw something. I don't know, because of the 4 that are in here, like I said, right? So that makes total sense. But yeah,
sure.
The Dawnstar is that thing that one thing that's not like the other, whatever that Sesame Street thing is.
Sure. And if you go by the letter column in the issue, they certainly knew who was going to win. They had to know who was going to win far enough in advance so they could actually draw the issue. They could actually write the issue and draw the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, they know that these 3 characters are going to be at the top spot: Polar Boy, Element Lad, and Sensor Girl. I mean, at least he's drawing them well. I mean, those are really good interpretations of the 5 of them. I mean, Polar Boy's costume is not easy, and Greg LaRocque sometimes doesn't get it right, and I like it. And yes, I have to imagine people were like, it's John Byrne, he's been at DC for about a year and a half by now.
I was wondering about that myself. Yeah.
Because Superman is up to issue 7 at this point.
And
then he had a couple, I forget. Man of Steel was every 2 weeks, I think. So it was,
yep.
Yeah. So we're talking almost like a year, that he's been floating around the DC universe, and people loved Byrne, or came over to DC. So if you're a fan of John Byrne, you're going, oh, I'm picking that issue up. So
that's true. Yeah,
smart.
I would, if I had been buying Legion off the shelf at that time, because I was buying Superman at that time, John Byrne's Superman.
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of his Alpha Flight. So yeah, I was good with John Byrne doing stuff. I probably would have been excited about this too, because I should have looked this up. Did he do other Legion covers after this?
Oh, that I don't know.
I'll have to look that up.
Ooh, Eric, the Alpha Flight Project. Because I like that series too. Did it spoil it for you? Did you know Polar Boy before reading this issue? Did you know?
I knew because of later issues.
Right.
I think there were some things that because like I said, we're coming up to the point where I came back into the Legion.
Okay.
And read it through the end of this run. So based on that, I already knew that, but I didn't know what led into him being elected and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to what comes next to see how this progresses through the end.
Sure.
And I know from the 5 year later run, at least some characters are disparaging of poor Breck, his tenure as leader. So
it's only been 10 years that fans actually were that it was given over to the fans to choose the leaders. It was Paul Levitz in 1977 with the election of Wildfire. That was the one that kicked off this whole writing in campaign. And then up to this point, as they talk about in this letter column, it's slowly dwindling. They talk about not a lot of. They said about 400 and some, I guess it was, that actually voted. Which
419 was it?
Okay. So it's a thing. I like. It's part of the Legion mythos, right? And it's part of their fun, and it's part of their history, and. There was an election issue in that Bendis issue, but it was handled differently. Actually, I have a few points about this issue. Rereading this issue after that Bendis issue, and a couple of those Bendis issues, where I'm like, oh, there's a lot of similarities in story structure in a different few ways. So I'm like, okay, it's gonna be fun to talk about that.
All right.
I just have a few more general thoughts. I love that everyone is heard from. All 24 members of the Legionnaire have something to say. That's great. I think the artwork is fine to good. I think there's some really good sequences and there's some really fine sequences, and I'm comfortable with what LaRocque is doing, and he's hitting his marks. And I even think after the Universo project, there's some of this. It's kind of nice that he gets to just have a talking heads issue and to see if he can expand himself a little more artistically, right? Because we're kind of watching him grow. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you're like, okay, that probably could have been the whole thing with them in the in the lab, Brainy's lab, and stuff is happening. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I can't really tell artwork, and at this point, I don't care. Like, it's like, I get it. He has his shortcomings, and I am fully accepting of them. And as long as it isn't anything too overwhelmingly confusing. He's soldiering on, just like you talked about that Levitt said about him way back.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up, because that was one of my minor criticisms of the issue was the backgrounds of the but it's not anything new. So
sure, right. And my strongest takeaway is I love that there's stuff to talk about. That has connected back to some of our previous conversations. So those are my final general thoughts.
Oh, I wanted to point out, since Carl Kiesel did the inks to this, right? Did you know, Peter? I'm gonna try and stump you on this. Did you know he was the inker on Tales of the Legion of Superheroes?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also know that, or wait, I should ask this. Go ahead.
Who was the artist? I can't remember the artist's name. He had a softer approach to his art. I can't remember that guy's name. Can't remember at all.
I was going to ask you that. Terry Shoemaker.
Terry Shoemaker. That's right. Yeah.
So apparently, and this was in a back issue article. Supposedly, I don't have that back issue article, but or that back issue. But there was a reference to it. Kiesel was assigned a new talent showcase issue. He believes as a test run to see how well he gelled with Terry Shoemaker. And then that obviously worked out, because he got the assignment to ink those issues. So, and that was New Talent Showcase number 8 for those who are curious.
Right. I'm glad that Shoemaker's not on the main book. I liked Shoemaker's style. It's just, like I mentioned, it's just a little too soft. Like it feels like what like Chris Sprouse did later, or it feels like Colleen Duran, right? Like that kind of. Yeah. It's a little more.
That's a great those two artists. That's a great kind of meshing of Shoemaker's work. Yeah.
It's a little more whimsical. It's a little more light. It skews a little younger. And this book doesn't. I don't think this book, even though Steve Lytle is, you could sort of say the same. Steve Lytle's design work and his aesthetic and he's just amazing. Like he knows how to capture energy and knows when he can be serious and all that. Not that the others can't, but I'm glad that if it's anybody, we have who we have. That's fine. Like, but I like that. I think about the Mon-El Shadowlast storyline when I think of Shoemaker. And that Dev M Dark Circle stuff.
Yeah. Was he also on there when they did when Brainiac 5 and Dawnstar, there was some tale where they were kind of separated from everybody else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are some good stories on that Tales run. Yeah.
All right. Give me what you said. You have things about the election. We might as well start with that.
You want to? Okay.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
All right. Let me get down to my notes on that. was just telling Peter before we started recording. My note structure is always the scenes, and so I always reference the page numbers in my notes and stuff. But here we go. Okay, so oh wait, oh well, okay. Let's just start with at the beginning, right? So I kind of alluded to this a little bit before with so Alamalad does his announcement that he's resigning because how did he put it here? He's resigning because of he basically let down the Legion with Universo. If it wasn't for the four of you, we'd all be running around doing his errands today. And so he's resigning, even though his term, he says, is almost over anyway. And they're all on Earth making a new election convenient, which that makes sense, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so he's like, let's just do it. And then Polar Boy basically wastes no time at all. New Legionnaire and all. As long as the election started, I want everyone to know I'm running. So on one hand, Peter, this makes sense because this kid has been, an almost ran character for decades, but he was leader of the subs. We've talked about before when he came in at the last Legion recruitment drive that he came in and basically said, announced in a very dramatic way, he's here and he's here to stay. And I think we both thought that was really cool of the character, right? Mm-hmm. I think since then, though, his characterization has been like this wet behind the ears newbie kid, like Magnetic Kid, for example. I don't think he's getting the credit he deserves for being the leader of the subs and then how he's supposed to integrate within this team. And it's just not working for me, I guess. And then to add insult to injury, and I will say I do agree with Phantom Girl here, where she, takes his arm. It's kind of patronizing actually, but he takes his arm and says, "Take a deep breath and sit down." It goes against Legion tradition to be too eager for the job, and of course he doesn't care. I'm sorry, but the Element Lad interrupts him. And says good luck to anybody basically who wants to run. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I love that he does that. I think it's you called him a kid, but we have to remember he is older than 18, or he is 18, right? Because remember he said you're going to waive the age thing for me to do.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think the eagerness is very, for lack of a better word, immature, or it's just this guy, he wants what he wants in a way. Think of Dream Girl. How many scenes have we seen of Dream Girl going, oh, I'm going to be leader again, haha, and we love her for it because she's so brash about it and she's so like in your face, right? Why is this different, right? It's just a different energy. He wants the same thing. He wants to be leader, and Element Lad does not want to be leader. Sensor Girl does not want to be leader. We have people who do not want to be leaders, so why wouldn't you give it to the one
who does?
Who absolutely wants to be leader, whether he was a subs member or not, whether he's immature or not, or he's bucking tradition. It's like, I almost feel like, okay, you've bucked tradition when Sensor Girl joined. You brought back Saturn Girl. You have a character like Quizlet on the team. Like, I'm like, this is probably what the team needs, Yeah. Like I'm kind of okay with it. Plus, he's done it before, right? Remember in a couple previous issues when he went up against Element, he was like, "Oh, by the way, in the next election, do you mind if I run?"
Yeah, that's true. I totally forgot about that. So, okay. Yeah, they did prime
him in the running. Yeah.
Prime the pump, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm, so that's good. And he does say later in the issue, towards the end of the issue, he says, I've been waiting for this for years and now I got it. I have no problem with his eagerness, his desire. what I'm bumping up against is how he's been portrayed between his introduction to as a Legionnaire
Mhm.
and now, because it's been, I think he's being portrayed more or having the same experience level as, say, Magnetic Kid, and that's not true.
Oh,
Right. And it's just, I don't know. I'm a big fan of Polar Boy, and I want him to get his due, and he is in a way here, but I'm just the inconsistency of it is bothering me a little bit.
okay.
But what your point is well made. It's, what we have here, what he is shown on in this issue, totally makes sense for his character. And while despite Phantom Girl's, is it objection or friendly advice? Maybe this team, like you said, it kind of needs that energy, that youthful energy. Oh, that kind of reminds me of politics today. We kind of need that more of that youthful energy, right, to come in and break up the stale old man's club, right? Not that this team is that, but.
Well, it's interesting that it's Phantom Girl saying it to him, because she is the one with the most seniority at this point,
right?
If you don't count Saturn Girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, and to add to that list, when Ayla came back on the team, she was another one who was bucking tradition, right?
Yep.
Why? She said, "I don't care if Lightning Lad is on. I want a place. I also have the same power. I'm on the team too." So, yeah, it's. I think what's more interesting is that it's how the others react to him,
mm-hmm.
right? Shrinking Violet's like, oh God, it's Polar Boy. Dawnstar is just not having it. Who was the one who mentioned that he did have the history with the subs, right? There was one that
I think that was Colossal Boy.
Okay, right.
Or Timberwolf. I forget which one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that you always have that in a group of friends or at school. I see it in theater a lot. It reminds me very much of Anne Hathaway, like when she's just too over eager when she wins her award. It's just like, okay, stop with your theater. We know you're a theater kid. We get it. Shut up already. Like, okay, Polar Boy, we know you won. All right. Okay. You want this job, What I find funny is when Magnetic Kid actually tried to, I think, throw himself into the running. Did you get that feeling that he did that in the gym or in the lab when Colossal Boy's like, "Hey, staying to help, kid," and is on page 8. He says, "Well, if you need me to, I came by to see if you all had voted yet. I was expecting the election to be more exciting." And then Colossal Boy reiterates what Phantom Girl said. "Traditionally, we don't do a lot of campaigning, kid." And then Timberwolf's like, "Hey, kid, look, seems like your class of Legionnaires is changing the election style, right?" And then that's when we see the vote for Polar Boy ice sculpture.
Yes.
On the outside thing. Part of me thought, I almost wondered if it was Magnetic Kid trying to vie for himself to vote, or was he doing that or was he trying to push Polar Boy? I'm not sure. Now that I read it, maybe I read it wrong. Maybe it's not.
You know what? I think you have a good point here, because, like you said, Colossal Boy said, we don't do a lot of campaigning, kid, none at all until the last few years, and he goes, oh. And he's kind of looking down, like he's dejected a little bit. So you might be onto something there. Maybe he was considering it himself.
That's true.
And then we get the comment from Timberwolf. And from that scene, what I kind of glommed onto was Magnetic Kid's reaction to that. Seeing the ice sculpture was, oh no. And at first I was thinking, oh, he's judging Polar Boy for his campaign style or something, right? But maybe if you take that idea that he was thinking of running himself with that oh, and then the oh no, it's like, oh no, I have no shot.
Right. Plus, he gets a big fat 0 in the
Right?
voting
Yes.
tally, which I thought was brilliant.
I kind of felt bad for the guy.
I do not, absolutely do not.
We've been kind of poking at him over the course of several issues, and the fact that he got no votes out of all the members, yeah, that's just I feel bad for the underdog, and he is the major underdog.
Oh my God. And like the next person up gets 2 votes, not just 1 vote, but got 2 votes. So it's like nobody even thought, like I'd have to go back and look at those other breakdowns to see, did anybody else ever get 0?
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh that he absolutely did not get any. And it goes to show, like, that speaks to, and this is all still wrapped up in the whole Polar Boy discussion, because it is a popularity contest. But, look at the other people that don't get a lot of votes. Invisible Kid, who has not been very spotlighted in this run. Colossal Boy, who's had some things, but not a lot. Tellus is getting Tellus got 5, Quizlet got 6, Dawnstar got 7. She really hasn't done much. White Witch hasn't done much. Sunboy, it's like you keep going up the list, and not a lot of these characters at the low end have not really had much to do. It's very interesting that then Dream Girl is very low down there too.
I don't get that whatsoever.
Not based on what I'm trying to point out, that's for sure. Like she's been, or people have just, they haven't, that's the thing. Readers have not liked Dream Girl in this run, right? Like they've been very reactive to her. Whereas we are now looking at her 30 years later and we're going, she is brilliant. Like she's owning who she is. And I guess some people can't really handle that.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned Dream Girl, shall we point out her involvement in this? Because that was one of the other interesting elements of this election issue. Mm-hmm. So just after Polar Boy announces his candidacy, where is it? Oh no, right before she announces, she says reacting to Element Lad's thing, how unforeseen, with the emphasis on that second word, unforeseen. Her being the person who can see the future, right? Mm-hmm. And then after Polar Boy's announcement, he even says, "Dream Girl, have you had any visions of how this campaign will turn out? You're not running yourself, are you? Sizing up his potential competition, right?" Her comment back, "No, and I haven't foreseen the results, Polar Boy, but I have decided to cast my vote for Censor Girl." And so there's that impish quality of her, like I think you pointed out earlier, just interjecting, just to mess with the guy, right? Or is she, or has she had these visions and she's being coy or flat out lying about it, right?
I don't know. I mean, I sort of think of, she was there for the Universo Project. She was there for some of the Censor Girl story, right? Like there was only a handful of members of the team that were there when Censor Girl was going up against Emerald Empress, or it is just Dream Girl being Dream Girl, or, and this is the boring answer, Paul Levitz knows who the top 3 are, so he has to formulate a story around it. Yeah. And the way you do that is you throw a curve in here. You have to give somebody else in the running, and you give it to Censor Girl,
Well, and see, and this next bit from Censor Girl is kind of played into my whole disjointed aspect of this, because the way that Censor Girl reacts to this, thank you, Dream Girl, but I cannot see myself seeking to be Legion leader, especially so soon after I've given up my throne on Arando. The way that she said that just seemed odd. And I wasn't quite sure how to interpret it, right? So given that she's Censor Girl and she's, her new abilities is that she can see things. How did she put it now?
The illusions of,
see through the illusions, right? So she cannot see herself seeking to be Legion, but she doesn't say, I don't want to be.
She says later that she still hasn't forgiven herself for letting Universal gain control. of
Mm-hmm.
herself while Earth slept. Um, she is. I think it makes sense character wise. She's not like Lightning Lass trying to get back into the Legion with fire and brimstone. She's doing penance, right? This was all penance,
Mm-hmm.
and even if that is somewhat resolved, it's still she's a different person. She gave up. I understand it. She gave up being the ruler of Veranda. I mean, we saw that in that other wrap up issue after Sense Girl's storyline, and for her to take over the Legion, I don't know. I think it kind of makes sense that she doesn't want it, right?
But that's just it. She doesn't say that. It would make perfect sense for her for all the reasons you just stated. For her not to, for her to say, "Thanks, but I cannot do this
I mean,
at this time."
She says after I see what you're saying.
I'm nitpicking, but yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't Levitz doesn't drop it all in one. He's got to spread it out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then right after that, Dream Girl, don't count yourself out yet, Jackie. You might be surprised by the vote. So she's just totally playing her. She just wants to mess with everybody,
right?
In this election. She's just if I knew this person in high school, I would really not like her.
I'd be head over heels for her.
Well, I would too, but I wouldn't like her.
And she's being Dream Girl. She loves election. Stuff. So, I mean, they all have their attitudes towards the election. I mean, some of them are even like, who are the ones that are like, do we even need an election anymore? Do we need a leader? Like, who is it that says that this team basically runs itself at this point?
Sensor Girl says that in the next scene. Yeah, on page 4.
Oh, is that who it is?
Yeah, I'm still not sure if it even matters who is our leader, which I took that as kind of a bit of a meta commentary from Levitz. The Legion seems to have a life of its own.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, you got 24 members. They're all broken up into different factions and cliques. You need the leader to be a liaison to the government, but you don't necessarily need a leader for the team, right? Because they've all been leaders, some of them, a handful of them have been leaders. There's a leader, then there's a deputy leader. If they go on an away mission, someone usually is in charge, maybe it's a comment on that, 10 years of electing leaders is how much more can we get out of it, other than Levitz going, this is really frustrating. Polar Boy won. Oh my God. Now what do I got to do? But I think you're right. We've said this before. I think he was pushing it that way myself.
So you mentioned Lightning Lass earlier. Her reaction to Polar Boy, I found a little hypocritical, I guess, because of what she says. Right? She encounters Polar Boy's vote for me yard sign in his sculpture, right? And then blasts it to pieces. And she's very angry, which that is her personality. But she says the Legion's traditions are worth preserving, aren't they? Don't we have a tradition in that you don't have the two members with the same abilities? Didn't she demand that be strucken from the Constitution?
I mean, it just worked out that he no longer is a member at this point, so it worked out in her favor.
Sure.
But yeah.
I felt her reaction was a little.
Well, see, that's why when you have a team like this, the personality's not gonna mesh, right? Like,
yeah.
And when you have someone like Polar Boy, because when it was Dream Girl shaking babies' hands and kissing older men, everybody was like, "Oh, well, it's Dream Girl," right? But it's Polar Boy. Why does Polar Boy get them so pissed at what he's doing? And it's like, why? Just because it's against tradition, you know? But
Yeah, he hasn't earned it.
I don't know. I guess that's, and when you think of like I think he's earned it. Journeying back to what you mentioned in that issue, the tryout issue in 13 or 12, 13, 14, whatever that was. Um, Part of me wonders if that just didn't plant the seed for it. Like he planted the flag and readers went, "Yep,"
Yeah,
you know. And when you put it to, we've had conversations about Element Lad's leadership. And I thought that splash page was just brilliant. I did not remember that we were going to get an echo of Element Lad feeling remorse about his leadership because he has failed, right? And I made this point before that we're just in a era of comics where a writer can be reflective of such things. If this was the 70s, nobody would care. You know, and it's like we had the universe, they had the Great Darkness saga. Did anybody resign after that, or the Earth War? I don't know.
yeah.
Did a leader resign after that? You know, but this is Element Lad, where he's been having doubts. He was voted on initially and was totally surprised that he won way back in 305 or whatever that was, 306. He's had a couple of things. Remember the whole Sensor Girl thing? He was like, ugh, why does this have to happen under my term? You know? So I think it was also maybe Levitt's going, I want a leader that really is going to be a leader. Who on the team is going to do that? You know? And the votes just went out that way. You know, so it's like maybe that's why he was vying for Polar Boy, and that's why he's continuing to do this, and that's why the other Legionnaires are like, ugh, I can't believe him. You know, now we have to see if their reactions are founded, like in the next year or so. Are they right? Are they right about him?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm probably most looking forward to is seeing this because we get the reactions throughout this issue about his campaigning, and then when he wins, we get what? How many pages is that? 3, 4?
It's everybody. Everybody weighs in that he won. I love that about it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's almost 4 pages of characters.
Yep.
Reacting to that. I guess it's like more like almost three full pages. Yeah,
because like Colossal Boy, the pipsqueak finally gets to show his stuff.
See, that's what I mean. The pipsqueak.
He is supposed to be short, right? I looked up the who's who. He's only 5'5".
Well, true, and it's Colossal Boy, so he would probably tend to think of people, you know, as diminutive.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sun Boy's another one. He's like, well, we'll have to see if he can take the heat. You know, Shrinking Violet's
in a 5-foot body.
Right. Some days I wonder about the Legion. Days like this, there's no point bothering. Saturn Girl, maybe it's for the best. 2 terms as leader are enough for anyone to need a rest. So that's like indifference, right? You don't get the feeling that I don't get the feeling that she didn't vote. She voted for Element Lad because her and Brainiac were going to try to get him to win again. Like, I feel like Colossal Boy probably voted for him. Maybe. Sun Boy, I don't know. Shrinking Violet, probably not. Let's see. Sensor Girl, is leadership ever a matter of election anyway, Saturn Girl? Perhaps it is inborn or something one is driven to. There it is, right?
Yeah.
Like he's driven to it. Like,
yes.
I love that. The 5 of them are kind of sticking up for each other, right? Like, well, maybe not Quizlet so much.
Well, but he's you know, now fun starts, but I don't know if that's kind of a thing having to do with wildfire there, or is it is a direct response to, okay, like you said, all the newbies are kind of banding together, right? So he's with him. He's like with Tellus. You know, I thought that was a great little bit in the panel with Tellus where he's thumping with his tail in appreciation or celebration of the results. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Call it Woodrow Wilson. I am proud for her. So Saturn Girl's proud at least, but she didn't vote. Wildfire is just stating, if I can be standing here like this, Quizlet, anything can happen. And we'll talk about Wildfire in a second. Hey, good for him. Timberwolf is he's congratulatory. Element Lad is just happy that he gets to be one of the troops again, although he becomes deputy leader. Ultra Boy is just eating a sandwich.
Yeah, Ultra Boy and Phantom Girl are both like, well, yeah, that we have basically a new leader, but they're more concerned with their dinner. which tells you how important this is to them.
Right. Dawnstar, Polar Boy, she's not happy. She's it's not that she's not unhappy, she's just like, what?
That guy won?
Block is just doing his business. Fascinating. I must add this to the holo files. Magnetic Kid. Oh, this is another reason why I hate Magnetic Kid. Wow, we did it.
We.
But we did it. What?
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, see, and that this reaction is what confused me about the earlier scene with Magnetic Kid and what, whether he was wanting to run or not, or it just there just seemed to be a disconnection there between the two things. But that is the problem with this character anyway. He is whatever Levitz wants him to be in the particular scene. He has no personality whatsoever. So again, it's not surprising he only, or not only he didn't get any votes.
Telling you, it's the biggest blunder of him wanting to have a connection to Cosmic Boy on this team, and they put in this bland character.
Mm-hmm.
We've battered him enough.
Poor Magnetic Kid.
Chameleon Boy is working on a puzzle, so he clearly doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Nora, did your precognition fail you? Sensor Girl did not win. White Witch, I was only teasing her, Misa. I wanted to see how Jackie handled the idea. I had no idea who would be elected.
What? Okay. How Jackie handled the idea. Why, Dream Girl? What kind of machinations are you up to? Is it just to poke Jackie a little bit? Does Dream Girl want her to take on more of a leadership role? What I'm just so fascinated by just these little bits that we're getting with Dream Girl and what she's up to and why she's doing. It's just I want more.
Maybe it's Levitz trying to. Maybe he saw
Sensor Girl.
Right. He saw the results. He saw that she came in third. Maybe he was surprised by that and was like, oh,
okay. But then why not have her serve as deputy?
Because she didn't win the second votes. Element Lad did.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I was confusing what was in the story as to the actual.
Yeah. Yeah. So Levitz probably thought that and was probably like, whoa, she got third votes. Like, okay, maybe that surprised him. And he's like, well, let me put it in here. Let me see if this character that he clearly likes, that we like, I like, and maybe that's his way of testing the reader's waters.
Yeah, true.
Subliminally, just putting that in their brains.
And now that we're talking about the numbers specifically here at this point, Timberwolf came in fourth. So is that why we get some scenes with him? Boy, that talk about a weird situation. Because I don't know, Timberwolf, he's never served in any leadership capacity. I don't think, right? But he's been a fan favorite for a long time.
Yeah.
But I guess the way that we have been, well, maybe it's more how I am perceiving Timberwolf in this run is it's not been very favorable. But to see him in a leadership role in the future, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean he's had spotlight in this run.
That's true.
And he's had several either B plots, C plots, or a backup story. So he's gotten focus.
Okay, so how do you going down the list here? Phantom Girl got 19 votes, as did Wildfire, and Phantom Girl hasn't really had any kind of. I mean, she's been around in a lot of scenes, but not no spotlights in the same way that Timberwolf has.
No spotlights, but she was part of that. She's been part of stories.
That's true.
I think it's a matter of screen time more than spotlights.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the feeling I get. Either it's the shiny and new Polar Boy and Saturn Girl, or it's screen time.
Well, okay, then
except for Dream Girl.
I was gonna say,
but we said that already. People don't like her.
Yeah,
the readers don't like her in this era.
Yeah, the fact that she got the same number of votes as Block.
They don't like brassy women. We had a whole conversation about Lightning Lass with Timberwolf. Everybody was like, "Oh, she's so mean." It's like, no, she's not. She's doing exactly what she should do.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what that is. Well, let's keep going here. So Lightning Lass, she laughs. Shadow Lass is like, well, let's give him a chance. And Monel, shady my love for those of us who watched him and the subs from the beginning. This is a little funny. Oh, that's not. Oh, Monel.
Yeah, you'd think a guy who is stuck in the Phantom Zone for 1,000 years would be perhaps a little less judgmental.
Mm-hmm. Polar Boy, and one more in a series of sad events. Ouch.
Why do you think Brainy is reacting? I mean, that's a pretty that's a really strong reaction from him.
Yeah.
One more in a series of how is he just being really loyal to Element Lad? Which this whole idea of him wanting to be campaign manager for Element Lad, because what have we seen the two of them, I guess, go through together besides everything in this run? Yeah. He
was deputy leader, wasn't he?
Was Brainy deputy?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought Dream Girl was deputy.
She might have been maybe for
at the beginning.
First in the beginning, but then when he won again.
Oh, okay.
I think it was Brainy.
Okay.
And they had that secret meeting about Censor Girl.
That's true.
And so
that's true.
Yeah, I feel he's been right there.
But still, granted, we have the next scene after Brainiac's reaction because he's there. Yeah, he's at the location of the mausoleum for Ron Vidar, right? And so he's very reflective at this moment and sad for the death of his friend. So yeah. I get the coincidence here of that reaction based on where he's at emotionally,
right?
But it's kind of heavy-handed, I think.
Yeah, it's a little harsh on his part. Invisible Kid is just like, congratulations, and then Polar Boy's like, yay, I won. Whee! And then at the end, when they're swearing him in, that's when we get the turn that Censor Girl doesn't want to be deputy leader, so they're going to give it to Element Lab. Which the poor guy, he's like, "Oh, are you kidding me? I thought I was out."
But at least it's explained away why he would continue on in that capacity. I mean, well, one, you've got a new kid on the block coming into this, but you have the seasoned, experienced guy in the deputy position, so that makes sense from that kind of a standpoint. But more importantly, it's a bridge to get us to the next bit, which is what's happened in the past with Cosmic Boy and Night Girl,
right?
And Element Lad's going to help through that. So that makes a lot of sense to do it this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could just imagine, especially after that earlier scene, his reaction scene with Siobhan, and he's like, "Oh, thank God, I could relax." Nope,
not quite yet. I did want to just mention real quick that whole last thing that we just went through was what also reminded me of the Bendis issues, where that issue that focused on every Legion member, those two issues.
Of course.
We got a sort of a slight idea about what they were. That last sequence, that felt kind of like that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I feel like we get those kind of constructions in Levitz's run every so often.
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess maybe that's why I can't remember exactly what we talked about in terms of the Bendis Sook, or no, I wasn't Sook. The Bendis and others, well, it was Sook too, but all the artists involved with those scenes, maybe that's why I kind of liked it. As I remember me thinking about it, it was like, yeah, I was okay with this because we get a little bit of them, a snippet of them, so to speak. Right. So yeah, it did. I didn't realize it at the time. So that's a great observation.
Yeah. What do you think of the wildfire Quizlet sequence?
Oh wait, can we one more thing on the election?
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, let's go to that. Because I wanted to. There's a couple things I wanted to ask you about that. So yeah, so we already talked about some of the numbers involved here for the election, the 419 ballots. Mm-hmm. Did you ever vote in a Legion election?
Yeah, I don't remember. Not for this one. I think I voted for the second Element Lad one, but I wouldn't remember.
Oh, wow.
What I voted for. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. The only one that, because I missed this. I was reading the other issues. I guess maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
In the previous elections. So the first one that I voted in was the first online one.
Oh.
In, God, what was that?
2000.
I swear, Peter, I swear to God, I had these in my notes and they're not here. There's something weird. Yeah, there was
before the New 52.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was that Legion run right before the New 52. Mm-hmm. So that would have been 2010-ish.
Somewhere around there.
I think. Yeah. And so it was online and I'm like, oh yeah, hell yeah. That's easy, right? Go on there. I don't remember who I voted for.
Right.
But I do remember that so bad. I voted more than once.
How dare you?
I was trying to stack the election for whomever it was that I was voting for.
Voter fraud.
Yeah. That's me. Yeah.
Rigged.
So who, if you had voted in this election, who would you have voted for? Try to think back at that time when you were reading. Who was it that stood out for you as the next Legion leader?
That's an interesting question. I mean, coming off the Universo Project, coming off of Sensor Girl, mm-hmm. I might have voted for Sensor Girl. I might have, if I was in the mindset that Polar Boy was actively seeking it. I might have done that just because mm-hmm. that's what Levitz was kind of steering me to do. Or I might have done Dream Girl. I don't think I would have done Element Lad. I think I was done with him.
Yeah,
as a leader.
Yeah, I assume I would have either voted for Polar Boy because of how much I like the character, new guy, shake things up, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But based on, now I'm cheating because I'm thinking about all the stuff we've talked about over the last 36 issues with these characters. Dream Girl or Saturn Girl, just especially coming out of Universo Project with Saturn Girl.
Sure.
She's just come back to the lead. She hasn't been a leader since I think the early 60s at this point.
Right.
So having her come back to the Legion, this renewed sense of purpose, wanting to be involved, that would just, to me, that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's come back to this established one of the founders and see what she does now as a leader, as opposed to, things that happened before.
Yeah. It makes sense. So Wildfire and Quizlet, let's because I feel like that's the biggest next change or next thing or whatever, playing off of events that happened in the Universo Project. What do you think of these two very similar characters? And we talked about this before, like they both are just energy beings housed within a vessel. What do you make of all that?
You mean the Martin and Lewis of the Legionnaires?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I find it interesting that Wildfire is wanting to explore this. He took this really brief situation in the previous issues. I forget which issue it was now.
34.
Okay. And he's like, well, wait a minute. Quizlet, help me, or allow, help manipulate my energies, and maybe there's more of this to be done, which for Drake seems a bit introspective.
Mm-hmm.
Some again, a little facet of his personality that either hasn't been explored before or much. And so that's kind of neat. Other than that, I don't know. That scene was just kind of one of those filler scenes for me, quite honestly.
Okay. I think what I appreciated was it was a connection to something that was talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go all the way back to any of the scenes that he had with Dream Girl, where he just constantly, it's a reminder, not Dream Girl, Dawnstar. It's a reminder that he, in his own words, is not human or a monster or whatever.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a continuity to him wanting to achieve this apparent end, where to be more human look. I'm not entirely sure, because he's still energy, right? But we do get to see him cast as a humanoid figure outside of the suit,
right? And I think that's a big thing, because we've seen a number of times where that's a big weakness. The suit is a weakness. So if there's a way to get away from that, I think number one, it's Levitt's connecting two characters that are very similar, but giving them something to do, giving Quizlet something to do, giving Wildfire something to do. Maybe it's a holdover from Steve Lytle. Maybe he was like, by the way, here's something you could do in the future with Quizlet and Wildfire. But it also is that Levitt thing of not allowing the characters to stagnate. Like, even if this is a minor movement for Wildfire, it's at least giving me something else to do. I have a checklist. I have 24 Legionnaires. I've gotten this one to another place. I've gotten this one to another place. And now he's working his way. It's time for Wildfire. Let's give Wildfire something, and not all of them jump far. Some go from, where they were to 200 feet in front of them. Wildfire, this is a smaller jump, but it's still Levitt's going through the large cast of characters and saying, I need to do something with them, because we talked about Levitt knows that his tenure is up. At some point he knows he's going to be going into at least issue 50, but then continues to 63. So he wants to leave his mark. This is a way to leave a mark, do something with Wildfire that's never been done, right? I don't think that's ever been done before.
Right.
Where it fails a little bit is artistically. It's just not interesting enough when he walks into the room and it's sort of blank and there's only one area. And I don't quite know what that area is. I don't know how he creates the chair for Wildfire to sit on. Like, all of it's kind of, I wish it was a little more well thought out, because then visually it becomes interesting. So then that helps to make the story interesting too. And I think that's what those two things sort of work against each other in that scene.
Well, I that's funny you say that, because that was one of the things I kind of liked in terms of Quizlet in this scene, was that, his quarters is basically nothing, right? Because he has no need for what a typical humanoid would have, although he does have, I don't know,
whatever that way station is.
Desk-like thing that's in that triangular energy field. I'm not quite sure, but just the lack of anything besides that in his quarters, I thought was interesting. But again, artistically, there's nothing there really to go off of, right? So it does come across as, well, this is not interesting. This is a comic book. You got to make it visually interesting, and this is just not.
I think what he does with creating a suit form, a body form. I don't know exactly what he's actually doing. Just manipulating fields, energy fields, which is a Quizlet thing. So, okay, I get it.
Well, but okay. Aside from the fact that, in like you said, issue 34, he helped Wildfire with that. But so far, I mean, is this an inconsistency, or am I just not remembering? He enters matter and manipulates matter. Have we seen him actually manipulate energy too, besides Wildfire?
I mean, energies matter, right? Isn't it?
I guess, sure.
I guess you're talking more concrete, like sort of
solid physical objects as opposed to
I mean, we also don't know, not yet.
That's
anyway. True. We don't know where Quizlet comes from, so we don't know what his
the extent, right?
Are.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. This could just be, here's another thing that this character can do that we've not seen before. Yeah.
Right. And now that I think about it, I really should have read that backup that they had. Remember the two where it was Wildfire trying to figure out what Quizlet can do?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of specifically.
Yeah. I probably should have read that again to see if there, because Wildfire even, I think I remember him saying, God, there's probably no limit to what Quizlet can possess, right? The little matter blocks were small but getting bigger, and I think Wildfire was like, my God, like, could he throw himself into a planet? Like, just how powerful is this little bug?
Yeah. So, yeah, good point.
So there's the mystery of it, I think, is more than anything, even though it's not like a real mystery. It's just, it's Levitt's. When you don't have Lytle there, maybe they don't, it's like Lytle had a very strong idea of what he wanted with Tellus and Quizlet,
right?
But they're not there. So Levitt's like, well, it makes sense.
and as I recall, either Levitz was commenting on fans' reaction, or it was his about Quizlet not being a favorite of his or something. I'm probably messing that up, but he's trying is my point here with this character.
Was there any spillover with Saturn Girl and Universo? What'd you make of that?
So this, and then the scene with Brainiac 5 are the remaining two that I had reactions to, right? I think we've already talked about the reader reaction to this scene, just briefly, I think, in one of the maybe the last Universo Project episode. I can't remember now, but yeah, this is the epilogue to that, right? This is the coda that they throw in, and Paul Levitz even kind of apologized for the way he handled this, because it was just here, and the whole idea, well, it's tying things up in a nice little bow without any kind of drama to it, right? So there's literally nothing going on here. It's all in the mind, but we're not seeing it, right? Because Saturn Girl is reading, I guess he's conscious in this Sense tank or whatever it is. He's suspended animation. Yeah, he's sleeping in suspended animation, unable to hypnotize anyone, she says. But she's still able to go into his mind and pick out what his plan was for all those heroes that were on that planet that she and the others escaped from, right? And the revelation is that he wanted an army to attack Oa. Okay. Why wasn't this an integral part of the story, the Universo Project itself?
And why didn't he? Didn't he have the army? Didn't he?
What was he waiting for? Exactly.
Yeah. Or it was maybe Levitz trying to. He looked at the story and goes, I really should. I need a little more motivation. I need for the character, and I guess I'll put it here. And even when they explain it, they're like, well, I guess we'll never know.
I guess it's, this is, if Universo ever comes back, there's that. He could try again, and maybe this time, instead of taking over Earth for a second time, or I guess at that point, a third time,
Yeah.
He's
Maybe,
actually going to follow through with his plan to attack Oa.
maybe that is Levitt's going to future writers, like, stop with the Earth thing. Like, but the other point is, do they know yet? They don't know yet that he was a Green Lantern. Only Block knows that.
Right.
Block never he doesn't tell anybody anything. So I guess
See,
that's why I'm confused.
This is one of the things that I don't like about these kind of elements, I guess, of the stories, is that we've already been told all this stuff, and yet Levitz keeps bringing things back, but the characters don't know, and they never go anywhere. So it's just like, oh yeah, it's maybe it's akin to it's fan service,
right,
in a way, and not really integral to the characters or the plot or overall. I mean, and so what's the point?
Or is it? I mean,
that's true. That's true.
There's
Well,
stuff coming
about this. Are you dream girling me right now?
Why does Brainy why does Levitz make such a strong point in the cemetery scene to say, well, this is where Universo put Ron Vidar. This is where Universo put the grave, right? Did they check? Are they checking? They're there, but are they checking? Like, I don't know.
You mean checking the grave?
The coffin.
Yeah. Well, yes, but because I know where that ends up, right? But,
okay. So that, I think maybe that's some of it. Maybe that's Levitt clumsily handling the fact that readers know that Universo was the former Green Lantern, but the Legionnaires don't know. And he has and he's reiterating the Oa thing because of what is to possibly come. And I don't want to say it because there might be people who don't know, So
yeah. Okay, that totally makes sense. You're right. But
it is clumsy.
Exactly. That's what I'm really, I guess, attaching my thoughts to. It's just not well done. And like I said, he in the letter column in issue 41. Is it right? Is that what he says? Or no, I can't remember which issue it is. Anyway, he made some comment about it in one of the letter column issues about his handling of that particular scene, and so.
And to be fair, I like that it wasn't. It doesn't need to necessarily be in the actual Universo Project because this is a continuing title and it is the 80s and not
that's
everything
true.
Gets wrapped up, in 6 issues and then you never, then you forget about it. So I'm totally fine with that. But there is it would have been a nice capper, but I also agree that it just feels like Levitt's trying to hit some points that it's not solid enough. It's still nebulous. It's like, oh, I'll just put this in there, and it's like, I know it's not going to make sense, but whatever.
So one of the things that we talked about extensively, I think, in the Sook Bendis Legion run in the Tales episodes was the lack of editorship. Right? Is this one of those things where it's like, if Kara Berger was either had more pull or she was paying attention, maybe they could have tightened that up and included it maybe in the last, like the very last page or something of the 4-issue Universo Project, right? So at least to have it all make sort of narratively, it's of a whole in those 4 issues, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, because we talked about. I mentioned that I think that last Universo Project should have been double-sized because a letter column writer mentioned that.
Yeah.
And Paul Levitt's like, nah, we didn't need it. And I was like, no, we you did. So that's all. That is editorship, right?
The proof is in this issue, right?
Yeah, right. You still had some other things that could have been explained or could have been part of it, And you could have still had echoes in this issue. You still could have had some things resolve. I mean, the Element Lad is clearly the biggest one, him thinking that he's a failure. So you're right. So then let's talk about Brainy. Brainy's boy, he is Levitz loves to put Brainy on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's not a windy, it's not a loopy, it's a steady sort of like little, well, he's gonna have an up and then he's gonna have a down. And then he's gonna have an up
dips.
and then he's gonna have a down.
Mm-hmm.
And now to the point where he's like thinking of wanting to go home. And this, I don't know where this plays out. I don't remember this, if at all, if it plays out at all.
Yeah, that was my recollection, is that it doesn't really go anywhere because of the things that are coming up.
Yeah.
In the future. But yeah, I really love this, from just not just from the more contemplative, that's not even the right word I want to use just to describe Brainiac 5, but artistically too, it's different from the rest of the issue. Mm-hmm. And I really like that, the coming together. Well, one, the sci-fi idea of the storage tesseract concept, the Valhalla Fields, the largest cemetery on Earth, whose single mausoleum houses almost infinite private halls, each with a specific interment. So just things like that. This is where I love Levitz playing with future, the future history and this commentary on burials on Earth. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's no more room.
Yeah, exactly.
They can barely house the living, so where are they supposed to put the dead?
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
I love that. But then Brainiac 5's blaming himself in part for Ron Vidar. I wonder if I could have saved him if I realized his doctors were killing him under Universo's hypnotic orders. And then he goes to the pond that's nearby, and the reflection. I mean, they don't show a reflection, but the idea of water and reflection, and he's reflecting on. It's just well done. I really like this from a poetic standpoint.
Right.
Perhaps I should touch more, ponder less.
And he went through the same thing. I mean, he went through the same thing after Supergirl. He went through part of that when he first realized that we got a small snippet of it when he realized that Ron Vidar had died. So yeah.
Well, and even those two things, especially, he was inconsolable when he knew Kara had died. And then he even had tears with Ron Vidar, just showing his emotional connections to those specific characters, right? But now time has passed. He's gone through the stages of grief, and he's now at acceptance, but there's still a melancholy to him. And then we get that wonderful final panel, pulling back, everything's in shadow except for the night sky and the moon, with him saying, perhaps it is even time for me to go home. For him to get to that point where it's like, do I have anything to offer the Legion at this point? Who am I? What's my purpose? Yeah. He's touching on these really big questions now. And so, if it does indeed turn out that this doesn't go anywhere, that's very disappointing.
Yeah.
But then again, what's the Legion without Brainiac 5 to me? So
right. It's a Spock thing, This is what you do. Yeah. This is what you do with brainy intellectual characters. You have to show their humanity every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've talked about Brainy before in this run, where he is not quite the Brainy that I remember from like the 5 years later run. He was colder, even though he still had personal relationships, and that there was just something about him that was. I think I almost wonder if maybe that's more a Giffen thing for Brainy than Paul Levitz. Paul likes to show the duality, and Brainy is just like, no. He's almost like, Giffen is like, no, he's my flesh suit. Like, I want him to be grumpy. I want him to be, condescending. I don't know. We'll have to see. See and compare.
Yeah. That reminds me. It's like Brainy in the 5 years later Giffen era is the Spock at the beginning of the motion picture trying to achieve Kalinar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's like House, he's just grumpy.
Yeah.
Grumpy dude. So And then we we have to wrap it all up with the ending, with
Oh,
Cosmic
boy.
Boy and the destruction of the Time Institute.
Yes.
Ooh, what? And then a quote from Time Trapper, which I have to imagine is a quote from the Cosmic Boy miniseries, I guess. I didn't go back and check.
Oh, I did not recognize that as something that was published before.
It feels that way. Cosmic
Does
Boy
it?
will return with all the Legionnaires at his back. Yeah, I'll look it up real quick. I'm pretty sure it's since I'm on the app. I've been using the DC app for this.
Well,
But
if it is a quote from that, then that changes my interpretation of this final page.
oh, what's your original interpretation?
Well, why to see the destruction of the Time Institute with, and we get this very long excerpt from the Metropolis University admissions guide about the Time Institute, while we're seeing its destruction, its implosion, as people flee it, including looks like Circadia Senius. And then to have the reveal of the time, the Time Trapper doing it, which, I mean, we could easily surmise, right? But I don't know, it seemed like to me to have that quote from Time Trapper at the end just totally undercuts the drama of that sequence.
I mean, we should expect it because we see Cosmic Boy and Night Girl.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've read the miniseries,
that's true. Well, yeah, and so if you don't have that, right? So, and I'm rethinking what I just said. Then it's just like, well, what is this then, right? So, okay.
Yeah, it's a direct quote from the last page of issue 4 of the Cosmic
Okay.
Boy.
So then why include it anyway? What does it gain us for the story going forward?
Because it's coming. Superboy's coming. Because not only is it a direct quote from 4, that last page ended with Time Trapper standing next to statues of Superboy and Crypto.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he's
That's right.
like, Levitz is banking that you read that, and it's like, okay, now we're going to get to it. And we've been teasing it in the letter columns. The Superman issues that have come out in this particular month also are teasing. There's a house ad. There's, so, and it's the Time Institute, and it's the Time Trapper. So
okay, so it's really just like you said, him banking on you've read this, it's been coming. It's all this stuff that's been floating out there in the Superman books, and now we're going to finally address it. I mean, they do have the Superman shield here,
right
at the very bottom. A Twist in Time is next.
Plus, we've come off the Crisis. There has been some, I'm trying to think of it in terms of if you haven't read the Cosmic Boy miniseries, there was the Crisis crossover with the Infinite Man. There was brief dialogue here and there about the adventures of Legionnaires 3 and Time Trapper, and we know that Cosmic Boy left and came back, but we don't, maybe if you haven't read it, you don't know the specifics. So It's a tease. I guess it's a tease. It's in TV terms, if I was watching this as an episode and you're like, oh yeah, there's a time and then you'd be like, wait, what just happened? And then it says to be continued, and you're like, I'm sorry, what? So.
Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time divorcing myself from what I already know.
Yeah.
And this is just like, we don't need it, right? Because it's already in my head, right? And so I would look at this and go, well, I did look at this and go, I don't need this. All I need is this destruction. I mean, yeah, from I guess a storytelling standpoint of some sort, you would need a reaction of some kind from what we're seeing and the text itself, right? To propel us to that. But we get that's why you have the next, A Twist in Time. I don't know. It just seems I read that as really unnecessary. But at the same time, I can see, okay, this is a callback. This is a reminder. And then we'll, instead of, maybe that's what I'm kind of bouncing off of, is that this is shorthand to remind everybody what has happened before, without, even if you didn't read the Cosmic Boy miniseries, you have enough here to get us to the next thing without having to explain it in the next issue.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just too much.
I think you don't have a lot here. I think if you were reading this without reading the Cosmic Boy stuff, you'd be confused a little bit. And I think it's a tease. Maybe this is what you're saying. I think it's a tease in to purposely say, if you don't know what's going on, that's good, because maybe that'll make you pick up the next issue. But there's been some drops of information of this, and the issue itself. I mean, I did flip through the issue because I have the issue. It has the big giant Superboy house ad, right? Like coming up. So it's like if you're looking at it and then you flip a couple pages, you're like, oh, what's all this? So I guess you gotta hope it's a 1-2 punch, I guess. And the next issue blurb mentions what's coming up and all that stuff. Yeah. I like the I love Levitz's narrative boxes with the like Encyclopedia Galactica or the tour stuff and stuff like that. And it almost feels like I'm trying to think, I can't think of a specific example. It's a television thing too, right? Where somebody's like, oh yeah, you and I, we got this new, oh, it's so great. We got this thing. It's a new house. I don't know. We're married, whatever. It's like, oh yeah. And then somebody opens the door and gets shot. And you're like, what?
But okay, but at least that's dramatic.
You don't think it's dramatic?
Seeing the destruction of the Time Institute, kind of. I mean, it's certainly eventful, but I don't know. This does not have the impact that I think that they're going for.
Yeah, okay, I could see
in the way that it's presented.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, this is a book that has a lot of destruction on many different levels. There's constant action, destruction, or whatever. I mean, not to play this card, but think of like 9/11. Like, this is one of those moments, but it's not. It doesn't have the same weight because it's comic books, or we've seen we've seen destruction of planets, and we just went through the Crisis on Infinite Earths. We've seen the destruction of the entire universe.
Right.
So
yeah.
So this is small in comparison, I guess, but I guess it depends on what the reaction is after.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you remember? What your reaction was to this?
No.
Then no.
Okay. No. I know. I remember reading the Superboy story, and just being floored by it. And that's what we're going to come up in not next episode, but the next time we do a Legion Project episode, that's going to be issue 37. And I'll definitely talk about it then, and my reaction of reading those Superman stories, and just the there's a lot of things going on in those issues. We're gonna cover 2 issues at a time. I think that's what we said, maybe 3. I forget what we said we were gonna do. It's a 4-part story, and there's just really interesting, fun Legion stuff, Superman stuff, Burn Superman stuff, time travel stuff, Crisis stuff. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm really excited, and I don't. But for this particular scene, now this was when I got to it. I was like, oh, I don't remember that at all. I was like, oh no, I like the Time Institute. What's gonna happen?
Maybe I should talk about this next episode. But I was reading Superman at the time, not Legion, and it was because of probably which issue in Superman is it that Superman 7?
That's
is that right?
Tease. That's
the tease.
Teased. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's where I was like, oh, I got to get the Legion issue that I'm wait, in Superman 7, do they have the same house ad that?
So here's how it plays out. Superman 7 is well, might as well talk about it. So just a little bit here for people who don't know. This is the John Byrne era. It's a story about Superboy battles a creature named Rampage, and Rampage is created because a science experiment goes bad, of course, and the creature has the ability to absorb solar radiation, but it's building, it's building and building, and they're going to explode. Superman thinks it's Lois Lane. Turns out it's not Lois Lane. It's Kitty Faulkner, who was the lead scientist on this experiment, and Lois was just there to be Lois Lane, to be a reporter. And so Superman gets the idea, okay, if she's based on radiation, I can absorb radiation, and absorbs it, and it's too much, flies into a thundercloud, hits a lightning bolt, and disappears for 3 days. And then comes back in that very last issue as the same issue as Clark Kent, and says, Lois, it's a complex story. You don't want to know about what happened. And she's like, what? Okay. And then they say, next issue, where has Superman been? Or perhaps we should ask when. Find out in 30 days in Superman 8, guest starring the Legion of Superheroes. And I can't remember if the house ad is there or if it's in the Action Comics. It's in the Action Comics one. That's where you get the house ad.
Oh. Okay, so in Superman 7, it does not point to a specific Legion issue.
It does, yeah. Find out in 30 days in Superman 8, guest starring the Legion of Superheroes, and then they talk about in the blurb, you got to read Legion first.
Oh, okay.
Then Superman, then Action Comics, then Legion.
Okay, so that's exactly what happened. So I read that issue 7, right, and I'm like, oh, I got to get the Legion issue,
right,
and the Action issue. So that's what I did, and I came briefly back to the Baxter run for those 2 issues, 37 and 38, and then for some reason I still cannot remember why I did not pick it up until a little bit later, and then carried through to the end of the series.
Right. Legion of Superheroes 37 on sale in 3. This is from the letter column from that Superman. Because that's where the Superman Superboy saga begins. That's right, because you demanded it. The explanation of how Superboy could have been a member of the Legion of Superheroes when there never really was a Superboy.
Mm-hmm.
After Legion 37, come to Superman 38 for part 2. We'll be guest starring several members of the Legion in that issue. And then it's over to Action 591 for the Superman versus Superboy showdown. As they say in cover copy land, it had to happen. And the whole 4-part shebang's to be wrapped up in Legion of Superheroes 38. So then the Action Comics issue that came out this month, in Action Comics 590 is Superman and the Metal Men. And it's just them going up against Chemo. A little bit of a leftover storyline of the Crisis where Clark Kent just randomly falls into Chemo, and then Chemo becomes a giant version of Superman, and the Metal Men have to fight him because he has powers like Superman. And there's no connection to the Superboy story. All there is the next issue blurb that shows next issue, the battle you thought you'd never see, Superman versus Superboy, and it's Superman and Superboy, clashing towards each other in the skies over Smallville next week in Superman number 8. But then they do drop the house ad, just like in this issue. That big giant house ad. Superman versus Superboy, the DC universe isn't big enough for both of them. Whose history will win? Coming in April. Legion of Superheroes 37, Superman 8, Action 591, Legion 38. And I believe that's the cover to Action 591 in the house ad. So they were pushing this, and it's been something we've been talking about, this weird post-crisis. There is no Superboy, but Superboy's still around, and we saw him in Cosmic Boy and in the miniseries, and it's like, well, what's the origin of the Legion of Superheroes then if there is no Superboy? And that's what we're going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. That's the part that I do remember. You talk about like, what did I remember? I didn't remember this final page, but I remember we knew this was coming. And I was like, okay, good, because what's the dealio? Like, what's...
Yeah, finally we get an explanation, right? So yeah, I remember that excitement as well. And the reaction I had to what happens in that story. I had an emotional reaction to it. So yeah,
I did too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because even if because I remember these issues a lot. I really do remember them. I can almost already tell you what my favorite moments, and I already have thoughts about why certain Legion members were like, it's there. It's in my brain. This issue wasn't in my brain the way those issues are. So I have a feeling even if I read it and they don't necessarily live up to what I remember back then, it's not going to matter because I love those issues. And I'm going to be like, I don't care. It's going to be good. I haven't read it in decades and I'm so looking forward to it because
same.
So great. And just to be thorough, there's a tiny little mention of this in Adventures of Superman 430, which also came out this month, which I didn't realize, but it's on the app. So I flipped through it, and that Adventures of Superman is by Wolfman and Jerry Ordway at this point. And that particular issue is Superman fighting the Fatal Five. And he's having a little bit of like self-doubt. He misses his parents' anniversary, and he goes and says, he's like, I'm sorry. And they're like, dude, you're Superman. Get over it. So then he goes back and he kicks the Fatal Five's butt because he's like, okay, I'm good. I got it. But there's one sequence where Jerry Ordway creates this splash page, and it's just him thinking about, wow, it's been a crazy week. I teamed up with the Green Lantern Corps, and then I fought Rampage. And then he's like, oh, yeah. And then Friday, boy, you don't want to know what happened on Friday. And then he goes on. And that's basically it. That's what the Superboy storyline is wrapped up into, because they were more or less, they weren't necessarily all interconnected, but they clearly referenced each other, So that's all you get from that.
Well, I didn't realize that he fought. So it is the Fatal Five or some version of the Fatal? Okay. I got to go read that.
It's Mammoth. It's Shimmer. It's Gizmo, it's Neutron, and then one new character for the Adventures title. But yeah, I liked Byrne's run on Superman, but I also really liked Adventures of Superman 2 with Wolfman and Ordway. That the whole Superman era at that time was really good, and it is all on the app, so you can read it there.
No, wait, you said Fatal Five, right?
Sorry, Fearsome Five.
Thank you. Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
Back it up. Sorry.
Either way, I still want to read that because I like those villains too.
Yeah. My bad. See, there's too many fives. Fatals, Fearsome, Filthy Five, whatever.
Anything else on this issue?
No, I think that's it, right?
So I have some notes here on the letter column, the reaction to this issue that's in the letter column from issue 41. But now I don't agree with what I put in my notes in some parts because so letter writer Frank Balkan, I said I don't see eye to eye about this issue. I don't think this was a well constructed breather issue. Having talked through it, I'm a little less critical of it. I said, though I don't agree with Rob Rudderham that breather issue. Oh yeah, that Rod. Yeah. Because this goes back to what you said towards the top of the episode about the quote unquote breather issues being some of our favorites, right? I don't agree with Rob, letter writer Rob, that breather issues are uneventful. Right. Peter had a great reaction on his face.
Wow.
So I don't know what this guy's was reading back then, but it wasn't the same thing that we are reading for sure.
I mean, part of me thinks, is it because they were reading it month to month, but so are we. I mean, we're reading it sometimes 2 months, 3 months, like, and I don't, if we come to an issue that we don't like and we feel is kind of just like rolling along slowly, we'll say it, but these are some of our favorite issues. And maybe it's just a different mindset back then, right? It's the 80s. How old is that letter writer? Maybe he wants just all action.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's not what Levitz. I mean, Levitz. It's. I guess it's sometimes good to keep reminding. Levitz was writing in the style of that director. Who was that director? Linkletter? No. Who was the director he mentioned about? Multiple characters. It was a movie director that didn't necessarily even like plot. He just liked characterization, and he liked. The name is escaping me.
I can't remember either. Yeah. Sorry.
I think he was the director of The Big Chill, but I can't remember. And that's what Levitz wants. He doesn't want to do action all the time because he's going to get bored. You know?
Yeah. We were talking about the voting turnout, the 419 votes earlier, right? And David Harrington brought that up and offered one way to get more people to vote. I don't remember what that is now, but that got me thinking about the online election. I tried to find this, and this is why I want to mention it in case anybody who's listening might know the answer from some source, right? How many votes did that online election get? And here was I couldn't find it in my notes I mentioned earlier, but here it is. This was in 2010. I think it was in October of that year. Monel won, by the way, just in case anybody was curious. So yeah, I have to. It's got to be. I would hope that it would be in the hundreds, if large hundreds, if not thousands, at that time. But who knows? My recollection is that the Legion book, even then, probably wasn't a big seller.
Yeah, it's never gone back to the place that it was,
right?
And it never will.
Yeah, I mean, from basically the number 1/2 selling book in the 80s to whatever it is now.
I got the director. It's Robert Altman.
Of course. When you said that, I'm like, that's who I was thinking of, but I could not think of the name.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe it's maybe that letter writer is younger and doesn't appreciate Robert Altman type movies, but whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, so good issue. I think even with its little ups and downs, I think it's still a return to form and feels good to read it again, and I'm excited for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, that's it. Like normally what we do then is we say, hey, where's the Legion in the DC universe in April of 1987? But they're nowhere. They're going to be popping up in Superman, as we mentioned. So we don't need to dig any deeper. Could mention, this same month was the beginning of that Dr. Fate 4-issue miniseries with J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen. Where they really sort of hammer home the whole Lords of Order and the Lords of Chaos, and we get a new Dr. Fate by the end of it. Instead of Kent Nelson, it's that Eric Strauss character. So a little bit of a change in the Dr. Fate corner of the universe, but it was so great to flip through and see that Keith Giffen artwork again, because it's that crazy Keith Giffen artwork at this point where it's not quite total the abstract stuff, but it's not the Legion stuff either. It's like this weird in between mix. But it was fun to look through. I was like, oh, can't wait till he comes back.
We also have we've been, I think, just in passing mentioning the Legion of Superheroes Index.
Oh, right.
And so issue 5 came out at this time.
Okay.
And usually when you ask me about it, I have nothing to offer because there's nothing really in there. But Peter, I found a few things that are kind of touching on what comes next.
Okay.
Sort of. Bear with me here. So in this index, it talks about specific appearances of the Legion in Adventure Comics and Action Comics. And in Adventure Comics 378 and 379, Superboy dies in that issue. So you can see the connection there. Ultra Boy saves him, sorry, I should back up a little bit. So Superboy and other Legionnaires die because they were poisoned. And Ultra Boy eventually saves, and I think Ultra Boy was leader at that time. I could be wrong about that, but anyway, saves the Legionnaires and Superboy by using the Miracle Machine. In Action Comics 385 and 387, here's the connection. The Time Trapper makes an appearance in the Superman stories. So there are Legion stories in those issues, but Time Trapper is messing with Superman in those. And then finally in Action Comics 380, additionally in 387, the Legion story, Superboy resigns from the Legion because the team needs to have no more than 25 members because of taxes on gifts that they receive, right? More importantly, I guess the tenuous connection I have is that the Legionnaires erect a gold statue of Superboy in his honor for resigning and going back to the 20th century.
Okay.
I just thought that how interesting that those things kind of converged in that way.
Right.
And of course, that'll make more sense. Some of this stuff will make more sense as we talk through the next two issues.
Right. Oh, can't wait. But you're going to have to wait, listeners, because we are going to delve back into the tales again. As we explained, we're heading to our 50th episode, 50th recording, I guess you could say, more than anything, with issue 38. So we can't wait for that. So we're going to go back to the tales, and our very next tales episode is going to be a Zoom adventure just like this. And we are going to open it up to the listeners. So we will announce it on Twitter. We will announce it on our forum. We have a forum over on the Just Another Fanboy.freeforums.net. There is a Legion Project forum if you haven't heard about it in our Tales episode. And we're going to post talkback threads there. And it's not going to be open for like random discussions. It's just going to be podcast focused. So we'll put all the information there that we are going to have a Zoom open episode, whatever that means. And it'll be on some night, and I'll put the link out somewhere, I guess, or maybe in the forum. That way you have to go to the forum, you don't have to sign up. You can just look at it, and but we want you to sign up and give us some feedback. And I'll probably just post it that day, and a couple hours before, and I'll moderate who gets in. Hopefully I recognize your names or just let us know or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Tell us who you are.
I know. I don't want somebody coming on and making a mockery of whatever.
Talking about X-Men or something. Yeah, I
guess. But it'll be just a generic episode. Who knows? We'll talk Legion. We'll talk anything.
That's true. That's true.
Celebration. This way we don't have to do any homework for the summer until we get there. And it's just going to be part of the celebration leading to the 5th anniversary for those of you out there that are listening along and reading along and playing along with us. And always fun to just have some people to chat with. And
I will tell you now, Peter, and the listeners, I am terrified of this concept. I don't know how I'm going to react to whatever questions or topics that get thrown. Because I am a preparer. I like to take notes, right. And I like to read through my notes several times so that I actually sound like I know what I'm talking about about these issues. And so, yeah, this is going to be excruciating for me. So tune in to enjoy that aspect. I've been through a number of them, and they're always. You never know what to expect, but they wind up being fun. So yeah, it could be 15 minutes long for all we know. We could be sitting there by ourselves,
and nobody shows up, and we just have to randomly talk about something. So,
oh, wow.
So it's just, like I said, it's just kind of something different just to test the water, see if people like it.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that could be fun. So we will reach out to you on Twitter and elsewhere. And you can certainly reach out to us. You can do that at peter@thedailyrios.com or
longboxreview@gmail.com.
Great. And then we do have the second tales that we do after that. We have topics in mind, and we'll let you know what we're going to do.
That's good. That's going to be a fun one, by the way.
Yeah. So
not that the other one isn't, but
good things, good thoughts, all good things. So anything else, Eric?
I think that's it.
All right, let's roll out.
Long live the
Legion
Project Podcast.
See you next time.
Bye, Peter.